It's time for the AFL review and then of course the preview for the next round. Alex Caiafa in the Informer studio. Alex, last week, let's start very quickly. I thought it was a thriller between the Giants, who've re-emerged. They're playing some terrific football under their new captain, Toby Green. He really is firing them up. And that tremendous game against the Bulldogs that have been just about the most impressive team thus far in the competition. But for nearly 4 quarters, that game was an arm wrestle, and suddenly bang, 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 it was all over.
I think an arm wrestle is probably the best way to put it. It was neck and neck pretty much all game. The Giants did super well all game to stick with the Bulldogs, who have, obliterated teams in past weeks. They've just run completely over the top, and the Bulldogs were forced to really dig deep. And it was funny, probably maybe halfway through the quarter, it was only 3 or 4 points, and then before you knew it, it was 25 points, and it was game over.
Are those injuries going to hurt the Bulldogs? I think 2 or 3. Dunkley.
But the Dunkley injury is definitely going to hurt. Dunkley's a star, and he's started really well this season. He's been a really key pillar, obviously, to that midfield. But when he's played on the half-forward line, he's been a threat going forward as well. So he's definitely going to be a miss. But the Bulldogs, they've got a lot of depth sitting in that VFL, and
they've got a big game coming up. We'll talk about that. Let's finish our review. The Cats against a wounded Eagles. It was one-way traffic.
From the second quarter, it was definitely one-way traffic. Geelong 10 goals in the second quarter, and it was over by half-time. If you'd watched the first quarter, you would have thought, okay, this game could be a bit of a tight one, could be a bit of a close one, and then that second quarter hit and game over. Jeremy McGovern going down for the Eagles doesn't help. He's
Cameron,
obviously, and
as you mentioned, made the big appearance.
Yep, he did. He kicked 3 goals in his debut. I thought in the first quarter they were a bit Cameron conscious, obviously trying to get him into the game, get him that first goal early. But once I think they realised, let's just play our game, Cameron's goals will come, they wiped the floor.
Okay, speaking of wiping the floor, what happened to the Swans against the Suns?
Yeah, I don't think many were expecting that. Gold Coast hadn't been... I definitely didn't expect it. I mean, Gold Coast hadn't been playing particularly well. Sydney, last quarter collapse was basically the reason they lost to GWS, and we thought, okay, Sydney should bounce back here. But no, Gold Coast, they played really well. They're just one of those tricky teams, especially at home. They play good football at home, and if they're on their day, they can beat anyone on the Gold Coast. So,
Carlton wasn't on form against the Lions. They had chances, but
I think what separates the good teams from the great teams, and in no way we're saying Brisbane's a great team yet. Carlton in the first quarter, have a brilliant first quarter, control the play, but at quarter time they're only leading by 1 goal. Where Brisbane in the second quarter, they start getting on top and they really made their run. And the thing is, Brisbane in the first quarter were able to stay with the Blues despite the Blues dominating, where in the second, Brisbane dominated and Carlton were nowhere to show, and that was it, unfortunately.
Oh yes, you're absolutely right, that was it. And speaking of it was the day later that we saw a tremendous contest between the reigning premiers and a team called Melbourne Demons. Now, they're calling them the Demons. They're not playing like the Demons, mate. Where's this team come from?
As we've spoken about in past weeks, they're a revamped team. They just look rejuvenated now. Obviously,
can we do that at Carlton?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? But I think you've got to start calling Melbourne the real deal at the moment. They're playing like a serious football team at the moment.
There was an arm wrestle early on, and they just, they took some punishment. That was the impressive thing, where previous Demon sides would have fallen apart. No.
I call it the Mark Choco Williams effect. He just has this.
He's a mighty talent. Speaking of mighty talent, what's going on at the moment? We've noticed that Fremantle and North, at times look really impressive, and then they can't do the 4 quarters, can they?
No, they can't. North very in and out of games, and Fremantle, as we expected, especially in Perth, despite no crowd because of the whole COVID situation there. They were just way too strong.
The West Australian Premier at the last moment decided he was going to lock everything down. Wow, that was special. I really was interested in the Hawthorn and Crows game, and we thought Crows would have enough, but we always said, being played in Tassie, anything could happen. And what happened?
that something did happen. Adelaide were actually up by 32 points at one point in the game, and Hawthorn just made a huge run late and pinched the game, which was, don't think anyone was expecting that, but I did tip them to win.
You did.
So I'm glad
I'm not going to mention the Suns, mate. You didn't see them coming. Listen, Collingwood at the moment, they're in a world of pain. Their only victory is the one against the Carlton Navy Blues, and they looked really impressive, lifted everyone's spirits, but they haven't won another game, and they have had injuries galore. We understand that. The president has come and gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions, and now everyone is saying, is their coach good enough?
I definitely think their coach is good enough. Just 3 years ago they were in a grand final, so it's not like much has changed. I just think that the team, just given the off season, I think that's starting to come into effect a little bit, and injuries obviously, and when they played Carlton, they still had the likes of DeGoey and Taylor Adams and all those guys where. Against Collingwood, they were playing with a lot of young kids and not as many experienced players that we've become accustomed to.
What do you make of Bombers?
They look good. The Bombers. They just look like that added youth.
Don't say it. Do not say it. Not on our space. And last but not least, we suggested, or I asked you a question, which St Kilda was going to turn up at the Adelaide Oval, and you said to me, "Don't know." Well, we know now.
We know
Not
now.
the one that can beat Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide looked too good.
Oh, they do look too good, and they're just such a strong team in Adelaide. They rarely lose. When that crowd gets up and about, they're a very hard team to beat there. They're so strong, and they're still missing players too, which is the scary thing.
Stop it. Let's talk now this week.
Yep.
And very quickly, tips. We start with the big one, the Bulldogs in Richmond. And it's, of course, no Dusty because he's in New Zealand looking after Dad.
Yeah, there is no Dusty. There's no Dunkley for the Dogs either. But I just think the outs for Richmond outweigh the Dogs. I think the Dogs have a bit more depth coming through, and I think the Bulldogs are going to continue their unbeaten streak.
Okay, Collingwood, Suns.
I mean, who do you tip here? I mean, Collingwood, as we said before, they do get DeGoey back. They potentially get Chris Mayne back. They're debuting another player, so maybe that might be a nice little rejuvenation. We know Gold Coast don't travel well to Victoria. They haven't beaten Collingwood in the last 5 times, and I've just got a feeling it could continue. I think the Pies could get up here.
Can the Crows beat the Giants?
I think the Crows can beat the Giants at Adelaide Oval. I think there's an upset coming there.
St Kilda, are they going to run up against a mighty Hawks? Or is the Hawks going to go, wow, look at the speed and the brilliance of St Kilda?
I mean, again, which St Kilda's going to show up? We just don't know. I think
we can't keep saying that all.
Yeah, and I think given on that basis, I'm going to go the roughie here. I'm going to go the Hawks.
Wow. All right, Port Adelaide and the Lions.
This will be a huge game. The Lions are missing their key back in Darcy Gardner now. He got injured against the Blues, and they are going to be missing, obviously, their Brownlow medalist, Lachie Neale, who got injured, and he's going to be out for a few weeks. And I just don't think he can go past the Power, despite Brisbane's really good record against the Power in recent times.
And of course, you got the Cats up against the Swannies.
Has the Swans bubble burst from the start of the season?
Well, that swarm suddenly has dissipated.
Yeah, they've got a lot of injuries.
Must be a vaccine.
they've got a lot of injuries as well. They're relying on a lot of young kids now, and I think the way Geelong went against West Coast, I think it's too hard to go past them.
What do you say to North Melbourne up against the Demons?
Just give it a red hot crack. That's all you can do. And if you give it a red hot crack and you play hard-nosed football for 4 quarters, you just never know. But I think the way Melbourne are going, too hard to tip against them.
Is that the advice for the Navy Blue Baggers up against the Dons?
The old arch enemy game. It absolutely should be. And we've seen Carlton, when they've played good football for 4 quarters, they can beat just about anyone. And no buts. I think the Blues are going to get it done this week. I think they need to send a message out to their fan base that this is it.
I don't know what you've been drinking. I want some because I'm not believing it at the moment.
Yeah.
The Dockers, this is the derby or the derby in WA. It's Eagles against the Fremantle Dockers. What do you reckon?
I think Fremantle.
Who's the most wounded?
At this point in time, West Coast are the more wounded team. Yeah. But even so, West Coast are still very strong when they're at home, even against someone like the Dockers. And I'm gonna go with the Eagles here.
Okay, and last before we go, there's been a change at the top, or about to be a change at the top. A new president for the Carlton Football Club. What do you make of that?
Yeah, Mark Lejudice, he's had a great 12 years. I mean, it's fair to say, like on the field,
it's been brilliant.
On the field, obviously they would love their results more to go their way, but off the field, he's played a tremendous part in getting the club out of getting the club debt free, and playing a huge part in bringing players into
and the redevelopment of Icon. Looks terrific.
He's done so much for the football club while he's there, and his 12 years is up, and now it's time to usher in a new era.
President Sayer. Say it so.
Yeah.
This is Alex Caiafa giving us the lowdown on the AFL. If you want to know more, join us on what they call TheInformer.tv. Check out all our videos, and if you like them, make sure you subscribe.